First Minister, you're calling for a second referendum, even if it's by no means clear that this outcome will be any different than last time. Aren't you creating a new problem instead of bringing a solution?
Well, the UK has to find some way of breaking the deadlock over Brexit that it finds itself in. I want to see an early general election and a referendum to give the UK the opportunity to change its mind now that it sees how difficult finding a way forward on Brexit has become. So when you're in a deadlock, you have to find a way forward. Of course, I want Scotland to remain in the EU. I hope the UK remains in the EU, but if it doesn't, then Scotland should have the option of becoming an independent member state within the EU so that we can protect our position and our interests as part of the European family.
It doesn't look like the Supreme...
Get out, man. You know, I've lost count how many times I have heard the argument being made by people in relation to a second vote or just staying in and forgetting this ever happened. But the reasoning being that the difficulties we find ourselves in, the difficulties of being able to move forward, the difficulties of actually getting out, the difficulties of trying to leave and so on. And if any of that rhetoric was to be believed and accepted and paved the way for a second vote or stopping the whole process, that sets a very dangerous precedent, if you ask me, because you basically just told the whole fucking world that nobody is able to leave the European Union. All you need to do is look at Britain and how it tried and was unable to, so in the end just decided to stay. And as for the talk of putting it back to the people, I love how they're a bit more confident to put it back to the people now that no deal has been removed from the equation. The one thing that these people have been trying to do for some time now. And I know they've convinced many that the reason that they've been hell-bent on trying to remove no deal from the equation was because of the detrimental consequences that would emerge if no deal was to have occurred. But the fundamental real reason behind it all is a bunch of staunch Remainers who have never accepted the referendum result, all homed in on the concept of no deal, deliberately, in order to fuck up Brexit. And now we find ourselves in the position where the suggestion of a second referendum keeps being brought up. And what would the question be? Do you want Theresa May's shitty withdrawal agreement or Boris Johnson's potential 2.0 variation? Or do you want to just remain? Brexit is near enough fucked at this point. There is not really any positive outcomes left. And a good portion of the blame is directed at people like this boot. A good portion of the blame is directed at all the other politicians who have the same ideology as this boot, the same broken moral compass, if nothing else, sorry. Staunch Remainers from day one. And within a matter of years, Theresa May completely fucked it all up, deliberately, by design, giving these people the platform to appear plausible and respectable and responsible. As for that quip about the European family, I mean, that is just verbal cancer cells. Fucking.
Of course, I want Scotland to remain in the EU. I hope the UK remains in the EU, but if it doesn't, then Scotland should have the option of becoming an independent member state within the EU.
And yet again, another little tidbit of information to prove the point I've been making relentlessly for the best part of a year and a half now. They only want independence if they can't stop Brexit. They simultaneously make out that independence is what they've always wanted and the media backs them up. I've been through all this before. You know, you got Fatboy Blatford and Joanna Cherry, all of them, all the Rainbow Unicorn delegates down at Westminster, banging on and on and on and on about people having a right to determine their future in Scotland, etc, etc. Independence is looming. It's all about independence apparently, but yeah, you heard it here first. Again, for God knows how many times now.
Close down Parliament in order to avoid scrutiny. So I hope and I respect the...
You know, isn't it funny how in the space of, what, a fortnight, her justification for why she thinks Boris Johnson pro-Parliament has changed? It went from he's doing so to force through a no deal to all of a sudden doing so to avoid scrutiny. Wow. Wow. These people really do have short fucking memories, it appears.
Independence of the judiciary, but I hope the Supreme Court will find that the prorogation of Parliament was unlawful. A Scottish court reached that conclusion last week, and then we can see Parliament recalled and much needed scrutiny applied to Boris Johnson's whole approach to Brexit.
The years have not helped at all by blocking no deal, the only leverage that they had, effectively. Since day one, thwarting, scappering, stopping, you name it, they've been at it. Blocking no deal, making it illegal. And who the fuck was that supposed to help exactly? We all know exactly where these people's loyalties lie. And I don't completely sympathise with Boris Johnson either. Because there's nothing to suggest that he's not part of this dog and pony show. And that's exactly what this whole thing is.
His approach, I think, is to see the UK crash out without a deal, but be able to blame the European Union for that.
No, I think the blame would lie firmly with you. Joe Swinson, the majority of the Labour Party, the majority of the politicians down there, in fact. And that goes for a good bunch of the Tories as well. You know, Theresa May, let's not forget her. Oh, no. I wouldn't say it's the European Union's fault. I'd say it's the majority of Parliament. And at the end of the day, if you want to go way back in time, all you need to do is look up Ted Heath and the elite documents. Then you find well what they were signing the UK up to long before it had even turned into the EU. It's rather amusing when you find out, if you're not aware already, that the SNP, back when the referendum to join the EEC, or to stay part of the EEC, was brought to the public, the SNP were against it. They were flat out against staying in the EEC. They were anti-EU. Short memory again, Sturgeon.
Avoid a no-deal Brexit, request an extension to...
Of course, avoid a no-deal Brexit. Now, put this into context. Theresa May's abhorrent withdrawal agreement, where basically the EU have got everything that they could have asked for in terms of negotiations, and the UK got nothing because Theresa May made it so. So the only other effective way of being able to leave the EU, if you do not wish to go down the route of the withdrawal agreement, would be to go for no deal. So here you have Helmet Head. Oh, we're going to need to get it for no deal. Oh, no deal, no deal. And she's so confident in the claim she makes regarding no deal. But I still remember that interview with Jon Snow a few years ago. I could be wrong, I openly admit that. So yeah, fast forward 2 years and you're still repeating the same shit you were repeating the day after the referendum result happened. You know? It's funny how things just conveniently fall into your lap in order to make you sound plausible and believable.
Article 50 if necessary, and then see a general election and a further referendum to try to get the UK a way out of this.
How
That fucking grin.
is it that the UK will crash out of the EU without a deal? And would it mean the end for the United Kingdom?
And I'm sick of this fucking nothing burger gaining as much traction as it's been gaining in recent weeks, because Helmet Head is hell-bent on staying in the EU, and because she's so obsessed with the European Union and its ever-encroaching federalisation, all of a sudden that means the whole of Scotland is on par with her belief system. So because she's hell-bent on staying in the EU, and because she's an anti-democratic wanker, all of a sudden the Union is in jeopardy. There's a possibility, a major possibility of the Union capitulating, because what? Helmet Head sits there with her thin lips and her shit haircut, crying about Brexit. No, that doesn't mean that there's consensus. That doesn't mean that everybody's on board with what she's doing.
On many people in Scotland and elsewhere in the UK, and I do think it will make it even more likely that Scotland chooses to become an independent country.
I'm sick of this disingenuous bullshit in relation to independence. The only reason that they would ever call an independence referendum is in order for us to remain within the European Union, because that's what this is all about. If Brexit happens, well, we're going to have independence, and they gloss it up and make it appear as though it's independence, what you've always wanted. You've always wanted an independence referendum. You've always wanted the ability to vote for independence. And within a matter of months of getting your referendum in effect, hypothetically, it wouldn't be too long before she was steamrolling us back into the EU, because that is exactly what this is all about.
I don't want to see that damage be done to Scotland or the rest of the UK, so we will continue to try to avoid a no-deal Brexit. It's difficult to see how a deal is struck that both satisfies the European Union and also gets a majority in the House of Commons. So,
especially when yous have blocked no deal, you daft Putin. Wow, what a quandary we found ourselves in. How convenient.